Hi, good evening everyone. Welcome to another episode of Hometown History. I'm Jamie.
I'm Dami.
And tonight is episode 2.5. Title of tonight is We Walk the Line on the Rail Trail from New Freedom to York, Pennsylvania. So a little bit about me. I'm a high school history teacher. I got my PhD in American Studies. I write a local history blog called Wandering York County. And then I also co-run a website called Witnessing York.
And I'm a librarian for the Third Circuit Court of Appeals in Harrisburg. I founded Preserving the History of Newburytown, and I'm a Civil War reenactor in my free time.
Were you out on Saturday in the heat
For 2 hours
with
girl. No shade.
Oh, that is very hot.
It's like a sauna suit.
Tonight we are at the Creek House. We're in Railroad, Pennsylvania. This is in partnership with York County Economic Alliance. You can see on the map behind us where it is, but if you just Google Creek House, they are out there. They have an amazing blog that you can follow, and we'll talk more about them tonight. So tonight is all about the Heritage Rail Trails. So this is a part of the railroad that extended the whole way down from the Maryland line up through York. It was a part of the Northern Central Railway, and it's really the lifeblood of York County historically. In the 1800s. It provided the majority of communication and transportation for us, and then it also linked us from Baltimore to Harrisburg and the Northern PA starting in 1838. So,
Runaway Train.
Yeah, Runaway Train. 15 years ago, there was a runaway train that were on these very tracks right here along the rail trail.
Yeah, so locomotive 1689 with a 1954 engine, which there's only 2 of in America in operation. Somehow, and we're not sure, the police think it was vandals, but somehow this train was dislodged and it just went drifting through New Freedom. So you have to picture this train is reaching speeds of 20 to 25 miles an hour. And thank goodness the rail trail wasn't in operation at that time at night.
Yeah.
So no one was hit. It could have been really dangerous, but it just drifted to a stop, thankfully, and it came to rest 9.5 miles away in Seven Valleys, where the slope starts to go upward. So that's 135 tons of machinery just drifting along the trails unmanned. And today, it's still an unsolved mystery. There's been no arrests, and we're not really sure how it happened.
We're going to follow this runaway train tonight, going from New Freedom the whole way up through York, but we don't want to make light of the situation.
Right.
Dami and I chose the picture behind us for a reason. It shows a car, and it also shows a person on a bike. Someone could have been killed from this.
Right.
So we're not making light of it, but we are going to follow its tracks, like I said, starting in New Freedom, where we'll cover the history of the Underground Railroad, move up through Railroad, where we are now, with Horse Heaven. Stay tuned to find out what that was.
Not as good as it sounds.
And a little bit more about the Airbnb. Next we'll get to Glen Rock and the CCC that was there from the Great Depression era, Seven Valleys and the Great Watermelon Train Wreck.
I'm excited for that one.
And then finally in York in the city, we'll talk about the turning rust into green. So if you're interested in learning more about this, Dami and I filmed our 10-minute short last night on the history of the Howard Tunnel, how it was formed, and when the Union soldiers defended it against the Confederates, and we won. No Confederates went through the tunnel. At around 7:30, we will have our extra with Scott Mingus. He is the railroad expert from the area, talking about the Northern Central Railway. And then finally, this will be available on YouTube later for all you teachers who are going to show it to your kids in your local history class. So the railroad.
Yeah, so I'm going to set the scene for you. So before the railroad, how did we get around? So you have to picture the turnpike with Conestoga wagons. So in the early 19th century, we didn't have the railroad, and we were across the country, really spread out, and we had to figure out how we were going to transport things, people, goods. So we had the rivers, and then we had roads with the carriages, and then we had canals. And then finally, we had the railroads.
I'm hearing a lot of slow and hard work.
Yeah, it wasn't easy to get around, and that's the beauty of the railroads. So before we had the railroads, we had the travelers using the systems of transportation, the canals, the rivers, to visit their family. Farmers were loading up carts with their crops. The Conestoga wagons were taking the whiskey to Baltimore. And then with the railroad, we were finally able to move supplies faster. So that opened up a whole new world of non-perishable items. And then finally the railroad connected Baltimore to Harrisburg, which was a huge deal. And it went right through York County.
Yeah, those machines.
I know, it's amazing.
Thank you, machines.
Yes, thank goodness.
So we're going to start in New Freedom. So New Freedom got its name from a family that lived there, the Free family. And originally it was just named Freedom. And then they found out there were some copyright issues. There was already a town named Freedom, so they came up with New Freedom. Us Americans like to do that.
We do. New York, Newburytown.
So the history of Newburytown?
Yeah, so Newburytown, where we're from, got its name from the Friends of the Newburytown congregation, which was Quakers, but I'm not sure if there was was a berry town, and that's why it was Newberry Town or not. So if you know that answer, shoot us a comment.
Yeah. So in Newberry Town, no, why do I keep saying that? In New Freedom.
New Freedom. We're in New Freedom.
There was a rich agricultural center for farmers. The soil was immensely rich. So I'm an agricultural historian, and one of the papers that I read said that there were over 20 feet of topsoil in this area.
That's amazing.
Now we're looking at 6 inches. So the farmers here had a lot to work with. There was even the Summers Canning Company, which operated in town. They canned a lot of fresh fruits in their harvest. And of course, what did they use to ship their harvest? The train. Yeah,
perfect.
And they sold to Hanover Foods well into the late 20th century. There is a mural depicting the train and the cannery along the rail trail that you can see for yourself the next time that you're on the rail trail.
And then New Freedom gave us some famous people. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Robinspielberg, but look her up if you haven't. She's a pianist, a composer, and an author, and she has 19 albums, and she's been on the Billboard charts at the top of the charts. So she tours nationally and internationally. So she has sold out performances at Carnegie Hall in New York, which is amazing. And she's also toured 3 times in South Korea. So YD article talks about her, and it says she started playing when she could barely reach the keys to play. When most children listen to their mothers sing in order to learn the words, Spielberg took a different approach. She used the melody and her mother's voice as a guide. She reached one hand over her head to touch the keys on her family's wooden Magnus chord organ, and she played along.
Oh, get it,
so
girl.
Such a natural talent that she
Yeah.
fostered in herself.
Did you know that I played piano for about 9 years?
No, I didn't know
Yeah?
that. I play piano.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We should do a dueling next.
I'm
Hometown
either-
history, dueling piano.
It wouldn't be good.
No,
but I could do it.
I have not played a number of years. I have a piano. It's a 1937 made in York.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I
Okay.
wanted to get it refurbished. I went to a local music shop that would come in and try to retune it.
Okay.
And the guy said to me, "Do you have access to a dumpster?"
No.
Yeah. He said you could spend $1,000 and retune it, but it might not work, and
Right,
who knows
right,
what's
right.
gonna happen. So my dad has it right now. They're housing it for me. But
Maybe you can settle for just playing out of key.
yeah, oh no, listen to this terrible. That's my excuse for not remembering how to
It's
play.
not me, it's the
anything.
piano.
Our story here is about the Underground Railroad. So when you think about the 1700s, unfortunately, there were people who were enslaved in this country, African Americans, for hundreds of years. And so starting from the Revolutionary War the whole way up to the Civil War, we had freedom seekers. People that just wanted their freedom, like Dami and I are exercising right now. And the way that they were able to move themselves is through the Underground Railroad. It was this network of people. Sometimes these people traveled individually, sometimes they were more in family units. They could meet with other people to find that camaraderie and that sense of purpose. Some were successful and made it to freedom, some were not and were captured. If you're interested in learning more about a local family who helped, there were the Baptist family in Newberry Town. Our very first episode, filmed last summer, almost a year ago, to learn more about their story specifically.
It's on YouTube. It's on Witnessing York.
Yeah.
So check it out. So the Underground Railroad, it was an informal network of concerned citizens, and they were using their houses, they were using barns and churches to find sanctuary, and it was illegal to assist these enslaved people because of the fugitive slave law, and that was first passed in 1793, and then it was replaced by even tougher laws in 1850. But despite the risks and the fines, and you could even be in prison, the Underground Railroad conductors still decided it was worth it. So Scott Mingus, who we're going to speak to later, has a book called Soldiers, Spies, and Steam, and you can get that. And he talks about an employee of the North Central Railroad deliberately selling a ticket to freedom seekers. So in this story, 3 young men want to escape their owners. On Sunday, May 27th, 1855, Solomon Diggs ran away from his master, Elms Shoal, in Frederick County, Maryland.
So he's in Maryland. He just says, I'm out of here. One night, came up with the bravery and the courage to say, I'm gonna run. He gets to the border in York County. And by that time, he's with 2 companions. And he goes to the depot in Hanover and requests 2 tickets to York. Okay? Yeah. 2 bystanders were there and they noticed what happened and they said, I think that they are runaway slaves. Don't sell tickets to these fugitives. Well, there was a newly appointed ticket agent named Joseph Cleve, and he sold tickets to them anyway.
Super brave.
Right? I know. And so he said, well, here you go. Here are your tickets. And so they did, they purchased the tickets, they moved north, they went to freedom. We're not sure the end of their story, but we do know that the Baltimore Superior Court ordered that the railroad pay $813.40 in costs and damages. Today, guess how much money that is?
A lot.
Yeah, $27,000 that they would have to pay.
Crazy.
Now, eventually, the Maryland Court of Appeals would deny it in 1860, and they didn't have to pay. But Dami and I wanted to take a second to think about what it was like to be Solomon Diggs, knowing that you're on the run. I don't know about you, but when I know I'm in trouble, like I have such a bad poker face.
I have anxiety anyway, so
Yeah.
my heart would be beating out of my chest, my face would be red. I'm not a good liar,
Yeah.
so people would know right away that I'm up to something that I'm not supposed to be.
So he's looking at this ticket master, and he asks for the tickets, and then there's people that are claiming that you're a runaway slave, and they're just
Super
like,
high pressure situation.
what would you say? Like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm not.
You just gotta play it
Yeah.
cool. The less you say, the better, I think.
Yeah. So go Solomon Diggs. It's really cool, his story. And
It
then
is.
also how York County railroad agent sold him the tickets for them to get there.
Go York County.
Yeah. So the railroad, a little bit more of its history.
So we're in railroad right now, and it was first settled in 1791, but it wasn't incorporated until 80 years later. It's a well-preserved example of the late 19th century and early 20th century rail depot community. So if you visit railroad today, there's a 2 1/2 story store and a large 3-story hotel bed and breakfast, which is right behind us. You can't see it because of this, the screen. But all around, we're surrounded by farmsteads that reflect the importance of agriculture, both historically and to the people still farming here today.
Yeah.
And then there's a YDR article from the early 2000s that say no door-to-door mail delivery. It hasn't been since 1858. So just think about that. Everyone's thinking that they're getting mail to mail,
Yeah.
you know, house-to-house mail delivery. So the minutes from the most recent borough council meetings are tacked up on the bulletin board. Photos of new babies that are born are tacked up there. And you can even see trophies from when Railroad had their own sports teams.
That's so cool.
Right? It's really cool. It's like, it brings the community together, gives you a small town feel.
Yeah, I do like the feel here. If you get a chance, come down and visit. You can see here in the map in the background that we're moving up the rail trail. We're going north, so we're following the same route that the Runaway Train would have taken.
Right?
And in New Freedom, again, there's just this really cool small town feel.
Railroad.
Newberry Town.
Yeah.
Small town feel?
I think so. Yeah, we have the variety shop that everyone goes to right on the old trail.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Yeah.
And they still, it is amazing how it's just a small variety shop. They have really cool things you can go inside and buy, and they are always out of stuff. I mean, the flowers right now, they just run out.
Yeah, it's packed. Everyone in town knows to go there first thing in the morning to get their fresh produce, flowers.
This is how small town of a feel Newberry Town is. I go to pick up Dami, or hang out with Dami one night, and her mom, who's a lovely woman, she is spunky.
Yeah.
She says to me, "You better watch Kitchen, that boyfriend. I see you out there, out in the sidewalk, kissing him outside your house." And I'm like, oh my gosh, I must have pecked him on my way home or something.
You guys were making out in the driveway.
No, we were not. No, we weren't. And she like drove by and saw us and was like, "You better watch what you're doing." I just thought that was so endearing.
You know everyone's business
They
in
do know.
Newberry Town.
It is
so.
small town. You
It
guys
is very
know
small
everyone's business. So in the same area, there was also this thing called Horse Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Horse Heaven. Think in your head what you think that means.
I thought it was going to be something really cute, and it's not.
Frolicking in the woods or on the trees. Nope, definitely not the case at all. There was a tannery nearby called Frederick Helb's Tannery in the 1800s. And so when it was the horses' time to go, they would come to the tannery, they would be killed. Their hides would be used, which is great, but then they would take all the guts and innards that couldn't be used for much, take it to the top of the hill here in New Freedom, and leave it there for the buzzards.
Such a heaven.
For the horse heaven.
Ugh.
Oh, I know, I feel bad for those horses. So, I mean, the scavenger animals have to eat too.
Yeah, I mean, it's industry.
Yeah.
It had to be done.
Man, what are you going to do about it? So,
Yeah.
horse heaven, next time you're here, you'll know a little bit more of the story. So, we're also at the Airbnb at the Creek House.
Yeah, so this is a lighter topic for all of you. So Brian and Rochelle Lazaro moved from LA. So they were out there. She was from here and she works on design shows, but they were living in California. And they decided that they wanted something different. So they bought an 1886 brick farmhouse in Railroad and they renovated it, and then they had their baby girl Emma. And then for their next project, they bought the Creek House,
Yeah.
which is where we're at right now. So the listing said it was built in 1900, but they have pictures that are definitely
Over,
before
yeah.
1900. And the auction house that once was used to manufacture ice cream. So this was like a little ice
They made
cream
ice cream
factory.
here,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty cute.
Yeah.
And then it went on the market in 2018, and it was abandoned, dilapidated. They bought it sight unseen, so when they got here, there was animals, birds, bees living inside the walls. The real blessing was that there was an old metal roof under the missing asphalt shingles, and that was what kept the interior of the forgotten building free from water damage, Lazaro said. So today, the reimagined 19th century ice cream factory is a rural retreat right here in Railroad, working as a Airbnb, and it was featured on the Magnolia Network show In with the Old. And I know there's a lot of Magnolia Network fans out there, so check it out. You could stay here.
Yeah, it is private property, so if you come down to check it out, stay on the railroad. Make sure that you book with Brian and Rochelle if you want to stay, but it is a gorgeous spot. Yes. All right, so we're going to follow the Runaway Train
up to Glen Rock.
Yep, we're going downhill though, because trains don't go uphill. I was
true.
Corrected before the show.
Jamie had to learn that lesson.
So in Glen Rock, it was a small farming community. Can you hear the trend here?
Yes.
York, farming community. And then it was industrialized and the railroad came through and changed things. So we got a lot of information from the Historical Preservation Society in Glen Rock, so thank you, local historians.
Yeah,
we know that you guys don't get a lot of funding, so we appreciate all of your volunteer work.
And they never get enough credit for all the work that they do.
Yeah, it's a lot of selflessness. They said that there was a man that was named William Heathcote, and he came from England in 1837. He picked an abandoned sawmill, and he just started farming. So he built this woolen mill where there used to be the sawmill's foundation. And eventually the small farming community was put on the map when the railroad rolled through.
Okay.
There was a station called W. Heathcote Station. So now you know, dude from England, one of the first settlers here. Next he built, can you guess? A church. A church, of course, very important for people. Have to have your food source, your industry, but then of course your faith and your religion.
Every small town has one.
Another big part of York County history as well. Eventually then they had an iron foundry, a machine shop, and then that post office in 1843.
Okay,
we have a post office.
Puts them on the map.
Yeah, incorporated that in 1859. So there was at one point here, and this is a great picture by the way, it is in one of Scott Mingus's books. He has a picture of a 1907 postcard of Glen Rock, which I just appreciate kind of the old feel and just kind of what it looked like. So there was a civilian conservation corp here, part of the Great Depression, only one in York County.
So the CCC was established by Franklin Roosevelt, and that was 1935 to 1942. So William Hinton of York spent a year with the CCC, and in 1939, Hinton boarded a train from York to Glen Rock. It was during the Depression. His father was unemployed, and he was just 19 years old. He was the eldest of 7 children, and he saw the CCC as a way to help his family. So he says, I was paid $30 a month, and I got $8, and they sent the rest home to my parents.
Aww.
So, but that was a lot of money back then, especially during the Depression. The men, they were building fences, roads, bridges. They contoured farm fields to control runoff and erosion. They planted trees and built trails and parks for the water system and the water supply systems. Fun and games came at the end of a long, hard day of work and on the weekends, and there used to be a dance once a month. We had a little 4 or 5 piece orchestra, and they brought girls to the dance in a truck.
That always, in our story that we covered last night, 10 minutes on
the
Howard
women.
Tunnel, there's painted ladies they brought in. I'm just thinking like, let's go, like who thinks, let's go get some girls in a truck.
Like, you gotta keep them morale. That's what they did. But during the pandemic, they were thinking about bringing back the CCC. People said it would be a good way to get people that were on unemployment, you know, get the infrastructure going. It never happened, but it was a good idea.
Well, and this is another example of how York County connects to the broader American story. We have this national effort during the Great Depression to give people jobs, part of FDR's New Deal program, and then we had one right here in York County that when you go through Glen Rock, you know that you're close to where that history is significant, and it connects us to the larger
and
image.
It sounds like it was a really successful effort in York County.
Yeah. So next, the Runaway Train would have gone through Hanover Junction, but Scott Mingus, we're going to leave that up to him since he is the expert on the Hanover Junction. He's literally written the books. Dami has more books here that he has written, as well as the Lincoln Funeral Train as well. Yeah. So Seven Valleys, this is one of my favorite parts of York County. It is just a gorgeous place. It was originally settled by 40 farming families from Germany, and they came over in the 1730s. They were part of the German Lutheran and Reformed faiths, and they, again, first thing they built, churches, And then they kept on speaking German, parochial schools, and then eventually when the railroad came in the 1830s, it changed that.
Okay.
It changed the dynamics because now you are going to have, again, this lifeblood, this connection to other areas. And so, of course, you're going to get influences and cultural diffusion and other ideas that are spreading. And so they had this opportunity to trade economically, which then gave them the idea that if you're going to trade, you need to be able to speak the language.
Right.
They eventually started learning English. Today, I don't know, there are some Amish people in the area, a little bit more closer towards Glenville that I'm sure speak Pennsylvania Dutch, but that German history is lost and we're now speaking English here. So Seven Valleys is a key stop for the railroad. It was a busy shipping point for, as we said, agricultural products. I mean, if you're a farmer, you're going to saturate the market pretty quick. So you need a place to vessel out a lot of your supplies. Went down to Baltimore and beyond, and then there are a lot of shops that popped up. Again, the railroads gave birth to these towns, really.
Right, it did.
Yeah, I mean, people come in. And so Seven Valleys is also known for their ice cream. There's a blue historical marker on the rail trail. And today there are a lot of people that live in Seven Valleys that are commuters to Maryland. Right. And they live in Pennsylvania because it's cheaper, better housing, and
not better roads.
Right. Yeah. And Seven Valleys is the closest stop to the Howard Tunnel. If you want to check out the second oldest train tunnel in the nation, Seven Valleys is your stop. So in Seven Valleys, the Great Watermelon Train Wreck.
I think this is the most exciting topic we're going to talk about tonight. So the Great Watermelon Train Wreck. So 1918, July, the trail headed north on the North Central. York County, known for fruit. Now remember, New Freedom has orchards and canneries. So train one stopped outside of Seven Valleys. The second train, laden with fruit, rolled along a few minutes later. As the engineer slowed, he didn't put enough pressure on the brakes. So train number 2 plowed right into the stopped train, hitting it with enough speed to whip train 2 around. So that's huge,
fast.
That's not no small wreck. And then they sent the parts of it to the bank. So fruit went flying, and that's what happened with the watermelons. They just right off the train.
Can you imagine seeing that?
No.
Like a train and the other train, and then just seeing watermelons slow-mo through the air and like crashing on the ground. So Armand Gladfelder, this quote did not come from this book. But if you want to learn more about the North Codorus Township area, the flowering of the Codorus Palatinate is a great place to start. I'm sure the library systems have that if you want to check it out. But he said, everyone about the watermelon wreck, everyone in the town and surrounding countryside got all the watermelons they could carry, and thousands of them were salvaged by the people of Seven Valleys.
They're smart.
And they had watermelons for several weeks following the Great Watermelon Wreck.
I like that's just known as the Great Watermelon Wreck.
Can you imagine like running back to your house, like, look what I found, watermelon. We grew watermelon last year, and we had maybe like 6 or 7 plants. A friend of mine, Courtney Whalen, if she's watching, shout out, thank you for being loyal. And we had so much watermelon that I'm like, what are we gonna do with this? So I spent the afternoon cutting it apart and putting it in a blender so I could turn it into juice to put it in the freezer.
Oh, okay.
My kitchen was like a bloodbath. There was just watermelon pink juice like everywhere.
Sick of watermelon.
Dripping off my island. And then now we have a lot of watermelon that I didn't use this year. So
you're gonna have to use it this year.
Yeah, I think we're gonna make some more fruit smoothies.
That'd be nice.
So so with this, then the watermelon train wreck, there were 3 cars derailed, and the second car was damaged. Train 1, the one that was still standing, had a damaged caboose and the 4 cars, and there were 3 men who were injured. The flagman was burned under the coal that was used for the engine fire. So we're making light of it, but there were people that were hurt from it. Train accidents are never something to celebrate.
Yeah, and I mean, they're lucky that more people weren't hurt.
Right, yeah.
That was a really big wreck. So now we're going to move on to hopping freight trains, which is also very dangerous, and I don't suggest that you do it. So Bob Kuntz, the champion hopper in Seven Valleys. So did you know that the Seven Valleys had a
train
hopper? Yeah. What a award to have. But he could catch a 30-mile-an-hour train. At this speed, his body would flatten out along the side of the boxcar with a loud crash, but he would always hang on, and much to the delight and admiration of the younger boys. So, you know, you have these young kids that are like, hop on the train, and he's doing it, and they think it's amazing.
We should have a disclaimer, though, like, Hometown History is not responsible if you decide to hop on trains.
Do not try this at home.
And speaking of a serious topic.
I know, because I'm going to tell you why. So in 1886, train hopping ended in a disaster Manchester as a 10-year-old died a painful death. So this is so sad. Harry Hale missed a ladder and fell beneath the wheels of the freight train as it moved through Seven Valleys. He was wounded because the wheels severed his legs at the knee. And the poor kid suffered for 4 hours before he died, and he was begging the townspeople to kill him. I mean, I can't imagine. That would be the most horrible thing.
I know, and I feel bad for his family. Like, I'm sure, like, if he had brothers and sisters that are in the area that might still be alive today. I mean, gosh.
I know, yeah, it's tragic. So please don't jump on any trains.
Don't play on the train tracks, kids.
Yeah, no.
So we're gonna follow this train. Well, the Runaway Train stopped in Seven Valleys, but we're gonna keep on going because we can't have a hometown history in York County if we don't finish in the city of York.
Right.
So we're gonna focus on the Kings Mill area of the rail trail. This area is also known as Spring Garden Township, the Southwest neighborhood, or where the dog park is. Okay, that area.
Everyone knows where the dog park is, yeah.
The people who are watching this that are from the older variety, you might remember this area known as Schmidt and Alt, St. Regis, or Smurfit Stone, and maybe even other names. So
right.
this though different naming reflects how much this area has changed over the past 200
and the different
years.
generations that
Right.
have come through, yeah.
Yep. So this area along the trail is really not a trail user paradise. It used to be known as a very hot area. It's still now not a lot of shade cover. It's right across from, like, York College now has acquired a lot of the property that are in the surrounding area. And so if you go through it, it's really interesting to see how the history has changed over time. Like, you'll see the river, the creek, and you'll see trees, but then you'll also see old factories. Some of them are in more disrepair, some of them have been repurposed.
Right.
And so that's why this title for this section is From Rust to Green, to talk about the takeover of the rail trail and how it used to be this corridor for industries associated with the railroad that have now been repurposed now that the railroad has kind of gone out of style. So for example, the next time you're on the rail trail and you see this building right here, this is the York County History Center's Agricultural and Industrial Museum, but at one time it was used to make modern printing presses.
Very cool.
Yeah, printing presses, which again are kind of gone out of style.
Yeah.
Don't really have any printing presses. There is one in Lancaster County though. It's called the 918 Club. The printing press, Lancaster.
Cool.
And they still do it. You can actually go over and like see like Ben
cool.
Franklin like printing presses, which is neat. Another very cool building is this right here. Many people think that this building was first established as a crematorium. That is what it is now, but originally it was as a trash incinerator, and then it was repurposed to burn humans. It works. I mean, we need to do something with people who pass, so it is a great place. And if you go there, this picture is very interesting. Jim McClure, who is our third hometown historian, he's more of a behind the scenes guy. Yeah. He took this image and he pointed out how in the background you can see the tower in the back, the communications tower, and how it is covered with kind of fake greenery, and it's more of an aesthetic or maybe for security reasons, but it's again this beautiful blend of the garden and the machine, you know, industry, but then also agriculture. And then bottom right, you can also see the bridge, the Penn Street Bridge, you can see through the trees as well. So yeah, we've followed the train, went from New Freedom the whole way through Railroad, Glen Rock, Seven Valleys, and finishing in York.
Right, so the railroad tied our economic interests to the South before the war. So we're talking about the American Civil War. So relationships developed, shared values, and political interests between the North and the South. And many people were reluctant to denounce the slave trade because we were so deeply tied to the economy in the South. And then the Southern way of life as well. I think people looked at it as a little bit of an idyllic way of life.
Yep.
And presidential elections from 1812, the first statistics compiled showed that York consistently voted Democrat. But you have to remember that it wasn't the same two-party system that we have now. So being a Democrat then meant that you were conservative.
More conservative, yeah. It is interesting how geographically the Susquehanna River dictated our culture. Yes. Because we were more likely to trade south, influenced by Maryland, than east or towards Philadelphia.
Yeah, no, we were very tied to the South.
Yep. So we, of course, want to give a shout out to our people on Facebook, Retro York and Preserving the History in Newberrytown. Jim McClure posted earlier this week, if anyone knew about that runaway train, our connecting thread throughout our entire story. And we found that it's still a mystery, but you can read here in the comments what people thought. So Jim says, the only thing you remember is that the best idea that the police had and management was that juveniles released the handbrake and the locomotive rode off. And then after that, measurements were taken to prevent such things from happening again. Jerry Jones, who is our local geologist. Oh, and by the way, Matt Mundis, he was the assistant conductor at the time period. He also then chimed in as well. Jerry also pointed out that there were stop blocks that were potentially removed. But again, we want to highlight that Matt Mundis said that they got stakes and they jammed them underneath the wheels real good. Yeah. And because of that, the train is going nowhere, and we can hopefully no longer have a Runaway Train from York County. Learned our lesson.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen
We'll
twice.
make the same mistakes again. So if you want to watch us on YouTube, we have, this is our, I believe, 10th episode, or maybe even 11th episode.
Totally, yeah, I think so.
Lots of content on there, and of course, if you have any ideas, please reach out to us. Our next episode is going to be at the Burning Bridge in person in Wrightsville, where we're going to talk about the 50th anniversary of
Hurricane Agnes.
50 years. I'm acting like I'm alive when it happened, but I wasn't. But we're still going to talk about the history.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in about 10 minutes, rejoin us to talk with Scott Mingus and the Civil War history through the rail trail.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Yay.
We did it.